You have nowhere to go, yelled my son. Mike, his face twisted with anger. You are going to do exactly what Sarah and I tell you. This is our house now. You have nowhere to go. I stood motionless in the living room of the Upper East Side apartment I had bought 40 years ago, back when New York City was still affordable for a college professor like me. This apartment, with its high ceilings, crown moldings, and imported marble floors, represented a lifetime of hard work. And now, my own son was telling me it no longer belonged to me. At 75 years old, I suddenly felt like a stranger within these familiar walls. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, stood behind Mike with a smug smile on her lips. She had never liked me. To her, I was an obstacle, an annoying old man taking up too much space in their lives. Do you understand what I am saying? Dad, Mike continued, articulating every syllable as if I were suffering from senility. You do not have the resources to live on your own. You cannot take care of yourself. You either accept our conditions, or it is the nursing home. The nursing home. That threat had been hanging over my head since my wife, Grace, passed away 2 years ago. The loneliness had weakened me. It is true, but not to the point of submitting to the tyranny of my own son. And what exactly are those conditions? I asked with a calm voice that contrasted with the storm raging inside me. You stay in your room when we have guests, Sarah replied, finally speaking up. You do not walk around the apartment in your pajamas. You do not bother us with your stories from the past. And above all, you do not criticize our way of raising Matthew. Matthew, my 8-year-old grandson, the only ray of sunshine in this house that had grown so cold. He was a curious and sensitive boy who loved my stories about American history, about the great inventors, about all those moments in time that I had lived through or studied. And if I refuse, I asked, looking my son directly in the eyes. You have nowhere to go, he repeated, a flash of cruelty crossing his gaze. You have no money. You have no friends who can take you in. Your choice is here under our rules. Or the public state facility in Queens. You know, the one where the nurses have been on strike for 3 months. I felt a dull ache in my chest. It was not a physical pain. No, it was the pain of seeing the man I had raised turn into a stranger without compassion. What had I done to deserve this? Was I guilty of being too indulgent? Perhaps too absent, too preoccupied with my career, I see. I said simply, heading toward my bedroom. I will think about your proposal. It is not a proposal. Sarah shot back behind me. It is an ultimatum. I gently closed my bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed. On the dresser was a photo of Grace, my anchor, my strength. What would you tell me now? My love, how would you face this betrayal? I pulled out my old cell phone, a simple model my son found ridiculous. At your age, you should have a smartphone, he constantly repeated. But this basic phone was enough for me. And above all, it contained a number my son did not know about. I dialed that number and waited. A deep, the warm voice answered, Mr. Robert. James. It is Robert, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I think it is time. I will be there in an hour. He replied simply before hanging up. I started gathering a few things. Not much. Just the essentials. Clothes. My medications. A few precious books. Photographs. A man's life reduced to one suitcase. Was this how it all had to end? I heard laughter coming from the living room. Mike and Sarah celebrating their victory over the bothersome old father. They did not know. They knew nothing of my life before them, of my secrets, of my resources. An hour passed. Then I heard the apartment doorbell ring. Mike went to open it, surprised by this unexpected visit. "Good afternoon," I heard a distinguished voice say. "I am James Morales. I am here for Mr. Robert Sterling." There was a silence. Then my son's confused voice. "Excuse me. My father is not expecting anyone." I then stepped out of my room, suitcase in hand. Mike turned around, stunned. "Dad, what is the meaning of this? Where are you going?" "I am leaving." "Mike," I replied simply. "But you have nowhere to go," he exclaimed, repeating his phrase like a mantra that was suddenly losing all its power. "Oh, but you are mistaken," I said, heading toward the door. James was there, impeccable in his tailored suit. He took my suitcase and bowed slightly. "Mr. Robert, your car is waiting." I walked past my son without a glance. Sarah had appeared in the hallway, petrified with shock. "Who is this man?" she asked with a trembling voice. I turned around one last time before crossing the threshold. "James has been my driver for 20 years, a service I have allowed myself to keep, among others." We walked down the stairs in silence. James carrying my suitcase. In front of the building, a gleaming black Cadillac Escalade was waiting for us. The driver opened the door for me with deference. I looked up at the apartment window. Mike and Sarah were there, dumbfounded, watching the incredible scene unfolding right before their eyes. "Where to?" Sir James asked, taking his place at the wheel. "Home, James," I replied. "To the real house." The Cadillac pulled away smoothly, leaving behind a bewildered son and a life I had endured for far too long. The time for the truth had come. The Cadillac glided silently through the streets of New York, leaving the Upper East Side to head down Fifth Avenue. I looked out the window at the city facades passing by, carrying so many human stories. I have not taken this route in a long time. James said, breaking the silence. "Are you sure you want to go back now? It is time." "James," I replied, "I have lived a lie for too long." The car left the city heading west, taking the highway toward upstate New York. I closed my eyes, letting the memories flow. How had I ended up here? How had my son turned into this cruel stranger? Mike was born when I was still teaching at Columbia University, specializing in American economic history. At least, that was the official version. Grace and I had decided to live a simple life, a modest one even, not out of necessity, but by choice, on principle. "Sir," James said, interrupting my thoughts. "Richard asked if you would like him to prepare the East Wing or the West Wing." I smiled faintly. "The East Wing, please, for the view of the vineyards at sunrise." James nodded and made a discreet phone call. I immersed myself back in my memories. Mike had been a sweet, curious boy. When had he changed? During his teenage years, perhaps. When he started attending those private schools where social status determined a person's worth, or later, at business school. When he discovered a passion for easy money and the power it brought. And then there was Sarah, beautiful, ambitious, calculating. She had seen Mike as a way to climb the social ladder, and me as an obstacle. "We are getting close." "Sir," James announced after almost 4 hours on the road. The car slowed down, leaving the main highway to enter a private road lined with centuries-old oak trees. At the end of this avenue stood an estate that looked like it belonged to another century. A gorgeous stone mansion flanked by classic pillars, surrounded by rolling vineyards that faded into the horizon. "Three Moons Estate," I whispered, a lump in my throat. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. James got out to open my door. A man in a dark suit was already walking down the steps to meet me. "Mr. Robert," he said, bowing slightly. "Welcome home." "Thank you." "Richard," I replied, shaking the hand of the estate manager who had been running the place for 3 decades. "How are things here? Everything is in perfect order." "Sir, last year's harvest was exceptional. The critics are raving about our 2023 vintage." I nodded, walking up the steps slowly. At 75, every movement became a reminder of the fragility of existence. The interior of the mansion was exactly as I had left it 10 years ago, when Grace and I decided to live exclusively in the city. Crystal chandeliers, antique furniture, masterpiece paintings, a fortune discreetly preserved, far from prying eyes. Especially Mike's. "Your room is ready." "Sir," Richard said. "Would you like to rest before dinner?" "Yes." "Thank you." "Richard, and could you prepare a file for me with all the financial reports from the last 5 years I would like to get up to speed?" "Of course." "Sir, I will have them brought up to you." I climbed the grand stone staircase, walked down a hallway adorned with family portraits, and entered the master suite. The view was breathtaking. Acres of lush grapevines stretching to the horizon, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. I sat in the armchair by the window and took out my phone. 3 missed calls from Mike. I could easily picture him panicking, desperately trying to understand what had just happened. His father, whom he believed to be poor and dependent, driving off in a chauffeured Cadillac. I did not return the calls. Not yet. It was time for Mike to learn a lesson about humility and respect. And I needed time to prepare for what was coming next. I took an old photo of Grace and me out of my pocket, taken right here 40 years ago. We were so young, so idealistic. I should have told him the truth earlier. I whispered to the image of my late wife. I should have shown him who his father really was. There was a soft knock on the door. Richard entered with a tray. "I took the liberty of bringing you a glass of our best aged reserve wine." "Sir, and here are the files you requested." "Thank you." "Richard, if I may." "Sir." He hesitated. "We are all very happy you are back. The estate was not the same without you." I smiled, touched by his loyalty. "Thank you." "Richard, I think I will be staying for a while this time." Once alone, I sipped the wine, my wine, and I began to leaf through the reports. 3 Moons Estate, founded by my great-grandfather in 1892, was one of the most prestigious wineries in the region, a company that generated millions of dollars every year. My personal fortune amounted to tens of millions, and Mike knew nothing about any of it. I had wanted to protect him from the corrupting influence of money, to teach him the value of hard work, of effort. Grace and I had decided to live like ordinary academics, keeping our true situation a secret. Only a handful of people knew the truth. James, Richard, my lawyer, and a few close friends. But despite everything, my son had developed an obsession with wealth and social status. Perhaps I should have told him the truth sooner. Perhaps I should have shown him this estate, explained his heritage, taught him the responsibility that comes with wealth. It was too late for regrets now, but not too late for the truth. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. "Mr. Henderson, this is Robert Sterling. I would like to see you tomorrow regarding a change to my will." The next morning, I woke up with the first rays of the sun. For the first time in months, I felt rested, serene. I dressed carefully, not in the worn-out clothes Mike knew me in, but in a tailored suit, taken from the wardrobe I kept at the estate. Richard knocked on my door at 8 o'clock sharp. "Good morning," Sir, breakfast is served on the terrace, and Mr. Henderson will be here at 10, as agreed. Thank you. Richard, walking down to the terrace, I crossed paths with several staff members who greeted me respectfully. To them, I was Mr. Robert, the owner, the boss, not the helpless old man my son thought he knew. Breakfast was served with quiet elegance. Freshly made eggs Benedict, roasted potatoes, seasonal fruits, and coffee brewed exactly the way I liked it. While eating, I gazed out at my vineyard stretching as far as the eye could see. My phone rang. Mike? Again? This time I answered. Dad. His voice betrayed a mix of anxiety and irritation. Where are you? What was that whole performance yesterday? Good morning. Mike. I replied calmly. I am at home. In my home? In your home? What are you talking about? Come back immediately. We need to talk. I took a sip of coffee before replying. No. Mike, you are the one who will come see me when I ask you to. We do indeed have a lot to discuss. What are you talking about? Who was that man, that car, Dad? Are you in trouble? Do you have debts? I let out a humorless laugh. Debts? No. My son, I do not have debts. Then explain to me who that driver was. Where are you? You will find out in due time. In the meantime, I suggest you reflect on our last conversation. On your words, on your threats. There was a silence. Dad. He resumed with a softer, calculated tone. I worry about you. Sarah and I just want to help you. You know you can count on us. That hypocrisy hurt. Really, that is not what you were saying yesterday when you ordered me to stay in my room like a punished child. I was angry. I didn't mean what I said. You meant it? Mike, do not lie to me. You said it. And you meant it. You have nowhere to go. Isn't that right? Another silence. Longer this time. I am going to hang up now. I continued. I will contact you when I am ready to talk. Dad. Wait. I hung up, leaving the phone on the table with a strange feeling. Part of me hurt from this confrontation, but another part finally felt free of a burden I had carried for far too long. Sir, Richard said, appearing discreetly. Mr. Henderson has just arrived. Thank you. Richard, show him to the study. I will be right there. I finished my coffee and headed to the west wing of the estate, where the study that had belonged to my father, and his father before him, was located. An imposing room with walls lined with books, offering a spectacular view of the property. Mr. Henderson, my lawyer for 30 years, stood up as I entered. He was a man in his 60s, elegant and discreet, someone I trusted implicitly. Robert, he said, shaking my hand warmly. It is good to see you back at the estate. Thank you for coming so quickly. Peter, we sat down, and I explained the situation. My deteriorating relationship with my son, his behavior the previous day, my decision to revise my will. I understand your disappointment. Mr. Henderson said after listening closely. But are you sure you want to make such a radical decision driven by emotion? It is not an emotional decision. Peter, it is an awakening. I failed in raising Mike. I hid my wealth from him so he would develop solid values. But it backfired. He became greedy, materialistic, with no respect for his elders. And what exactly do you want to do? I took a deep breath. I want to create a foundation that will inherit the majority of my assets. A foundation dedicated to preserving the state's winemaking heritage and providing education for underprivileged youth. And as for Mike, he will receive a share. I am not completely disinheriting him. Of course, but that share will come with strings attached. He will have to work here, at the estate, for at least 2 years before he can claim anything. Mr. Henderson took notes, his expression professionally neutral, betraying no judgment. And what about your grandson? Matthew. At the mention of my grandson, my face softened. Matthew will have a trust fund managed by the foundation until he turns 25, along with a special clause to fund his education at any university in the world. Very well. I will prepare the paperwork. It will be ready in a few days. After my lawyer left, I remained alone in the grand study. The portraits of my ancestors seemed to watch me from the walls. What would they have thought of my decision they would have approved? My phone vibrated with a text from Mike. Dad, I am sorry about yesterday. Please tell me where you are. Matthew is asking for you. He is worried. Matthew? My heart ached at the thought of my grandson. He, at least, was innocent in all this mess. I replied briefly. I am Fiend. Tell Matthew I will call him tonight. Then I put my phone away and left the study. It was time to reconnect with the estate, with my heritage, with the person I had been before, simply becoming Mike's father. I spent the rest of the day touring the vineyards with the master winemaker, discussing the latest harvests and expansion projects. For the first time in a long time, I felt useful, heard, respected. Evening came, and as promised, I called my grandson, Grandpa. His tiny, worried voice squeezed my heart. Yes, my Matthew. How are you? Where are you? Grandpa, Dad says you went on a trip. That is right. I am in a very special place. A place I will show you soon. Really, can I come see you very soon? My boy, I promise. Dad and Mom are fighting a lot since you left. He confided in a low voice. Mom is screaming that it is Dad's fault. That piece of information made me frown. Do not worry. Matthew, everything is going to be all right. Now, tell me about your day at school. We talked for almost an hour about his classes, his friends, the book he was reading. By the end of our conversation, I felt both soothed and determined. Whatever differences I had with my son, Matthew was not going to suffer because of them. That night, I slept the sleep of the just, lulled by the deep silence of the countryside, so different from the constant noise of the city. Tomorrow, I would put my plan into action. Tomorrow, I would start fixing the mistakes of the past. A week passed. I gradually settled back into the routine of the estate, participating in meetings, touring the facilities, getting to know the staff again. Three Moons Estate was a thriving business, renowned for its traditional methods and the exceptional quality of its vintage wine. Mike called me daily, alternating between pleading and irritation. I held my ground, repeating that we would talk when I was ready. Meanwhile, I called Matthew every night, keeping that precious bond with my grandson alive. On the 10th day, while I was having breakfast on the terrace, Richard announced an unexpected visitor. Sir, Mr. Mike is at the estate gates. He is demanding to see you. I put down my coffee cup, surprised but not completely shocked. Knowing my son, he must have hired a private investigator to track me down. Let him in. Richard, and please prepare extra coffee. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of a car driving up the gravel avenue. I stood up and walked over to the balustrade to watch my son arrive. Mike's Porsche looked entirely out of place in this rustic setting. He stepped out of the car, looking frantic, wearing a wrinkled suit as if he had been driving all night. His eyes traveled up toward the mansion, and I saw his jaw drop in absolute shock. Richard welcomed him with the formality due to an honored guest. He then led him to the terrace where I was waiting, standing tall, calm, and dignified. Dad Mike's voice was unrecognizable, trembling with sheer disbelief. What is this place? Good morning, Mike. I replied simply, Welcome to Three Moons Estate. 3 Moons Estate, I don't understand. Is this yours, all of this? Sit down, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. We have a lot to talk about. He sat down like a robot, his eyes constantly scanning the vineyards, the mansion, the staff going about their duties. Why, he stammered. How is it possible that your helpless old father owns all this? Why did you hide it from me all these years? Those are good questions. Mike, I said. Richard appeared with coffee, served my son, and then discreetly withdrew. This estate has belonged to our family for 5 generations. I began. Your great-great-grandfather founded it in 1892. I inherited it when my father passed away 30 years ago. It is one of the most prestigious wine properties in the region. Mike stared at me, his mouth slightly open, unable to reconcile the man speaking to him with the image of the father he thought he knew. But you are a college professor. We always lived normally. Modestly even. It was a choice. Mike, a choice your mother and I made together. We wanted to raise you far away from all this. To give you a normal upbringing. Solid values. He let out a hollow laugh. Values? You lied to me my whole life. And you talk about values. I did not lie to you. I omitted a part of the truth to protect you. Protect me, his voice was rising. From what? From the wealth. The comfort, the arrogance that comes with easy money. From the illusion that everything can be bought. From becoming exactly the kind of man you have turned into. Despite our best efforts, those words struck him like a slap in the face. He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over. Are you mocking me? You hide the fact that I am the heir to a fortune. You let me struggle in a job I hate. And then you judge me. I kept my composure. I am not judging you. Mike, I am stating facts. Look at how you have treated me these past few months. The humiliations. The threats. You have nowhere to go. That is what you said. Isn't it? He looked away, uncomfortable. You thought I was weak, dependent, without resources. And instead of helping me with compassion, you tried to crush me, to control me. That is not fair. He protested weakly. Sarah and I, we just wanted... Sarah and you, I interrupted. I wanted my apartment. You wanted me out of your lives, while keeping a clear conscience. So you offered me an unacceptable deal, thinking I supposedly had no alternative. He sat back down, running a trembling hand over his face. So what now? He finally asked. What do you expect from me? What I expect from you? I repeated, surprised by the question. I expect nothing. Mike, it is up to you to decide what you want to do now that you know the truth. The truth? He muttered. What truth? That my father is a millionaire, that I could have had a completely different life, that you deprived me of my inheritance, I deprived you of nothing. All of this will be yours one day, but I wanted you to earn it, to understand the value of hard work, the responsibility that comes with wealth. And you think I failed your test? His voice was bitter. It was not a test. Mike, it was an upbringing. And yes, somewhere along the line, your mother and I failed. But it is not too late. Not too late. For what? I sighed, searching for the right words. To learn, to grow, To become the man you could be. He remained silent for a long time, looking out at the vineyards stretching out of sight. Something shifted in his gaze, perhaps a realization, perhaps a calculation. And Matthew, he asked suddenly, does Matthew know? No, I answered softly. Matthew knows nothing about any of this. There is still time for him to have a normal childhood. Mike nodded thoughtfully. And Sarah, I have nothing to say to Sarah. She is your wife. It is up to you to decide what you want to tell her. He stood up, calmer now, and walked over to the railing to gaze at the estate. It is magnificent, he admitted reluctantly. How could you live away from all this for so long? It is not the place that matters. Mike, it is what you do in it, here or in the city. I have always been the same man, with the same values. He turned to face me squarely. And now, do you plan to stay here? For the time being? Yes. I need to reconnect with the estate, to think about the future. The future, he echoed, and I caught a calculating glint in his eye that I knew all too well. I modified my will. Mike, I said calmly, you will inherit a portion of the estate, but with certain conditions attached. The rest will go to a foundation I created, as well as to Matthew when he comes of age. His face fell. Are you disinheriting me? No. I am giving you a chance to prove you are worthy of this legacy. You will have to work here, learn the trade, and truly understand what Three Moons Estate represents. Work here, he exclaimed in disbelief. I am a financial consultant, not a winemaker. You are my son first and foremost, I replied firmly, and a sterling. This land is in your blood, whether you like it or not. He ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. I need to think, he finally said. I need time. Take all the time you need. My door will always be open to you. Mike, he looked at me for a long time, then nodded slowly. I am going back to the city. As he was getting ready to leave, I called out to him one last time. Mike, I would like to see Matthew this weekend. Could you bring him to me? A shadow crossed his face, but he nodded. All right, Dad. On Saturday, I stood in silence observing the woman my son had chosen. Beautiful, intelligent, but with a harshness that had always made me uncomfortable. What exactly do you want? I finally asked. I want you to leave Mike alone. I want you to stop your manipulations, your tests, your moral lectures. He is 42 years old. For heaven's sake. He does not need his father playing guru with his life. And did Mike send you? She looked away. No. He doesn't even know I am here. I see. So it is you who are worried about your own position. Her eyes widened at the accusation. How dare you, Sarah? We are both adults. You married Mike, partly for his social standing, your future prospects. Now that you discover the family fortune is real, but tied to demands you had not anticipated. You are worried. She sat back down, trying to regain her composure. You do not know me. Robert, I know you better than you think. I have watched you manipulate my son for 8 years. Isolate him from me. Constantly try to control his environment. You saw me as a threat. An obstacle to be removed. Hence your insistence on putting me in that nursing home. It was for your own good. She protested weakly. No, Sarah. It was for your convenience. To get rid of the annoying old man you thought I was. A heavy silence settled between us. I drank my water quietly, letting her absorb my words. What is it you want? She finally asked, her voice barely audible. I want to see my grandson grow up in a healthy environment. I want my son to become the man he could be. If he weren't constantly torn between his core values and yours, I want Three Moons Estate to continue thriving under the leadership of someone who understands and respects its heritage. And what role do you have for me in this pretty family picture? She asked with sarcasm. That is up to you to determine. Sarah, you either support Mike in this new chapter of his life, or you keep dragging him down. The choice is yours. She stood up, adjusting her suit with a nervous gesture. You think you know everything, don't you, the almighty patriarch on his estate? But you do not know Mike the way I know him. Perhaps not, I conceded. But I know the potential he has always had, which you have helped suffocate. That is unfair, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Life is unfair. Sarah, now, if you will excuse me, I was expecting my grandson today. Where exactly is he? I already told you. With my parents. I would like to speak with him. That is not possible at the moment. I stood up as well, drawing myself up to my full height. You have no right to keep me from seeing my grandson. Sarah, I am not keeping you from anything. I just want Mike and I to have time to decide how to handle this situation. Very well, I said, realizing that pressing the issue would lead nowhere for now. But make sure you tell Mike that my door remains open for him and for Matthew. She nodded stiffly and headed for the exit. I followed her to the door. One last thing. Sarah, I said as she was getting ready to step into the waiting taxi. Never underestimate the strength of blood ties. Mike is a Sterling. No matter what you think, this land, this estate, this legacy, all of it is part of him, whether he wants it or not. She shot me one last unreadable look before getting into the cab. I watched her leave, a growing sense of unease settling inside me. What was really going on back in the city? What was happening to Mike? And, above all, to Matthew. I returned to my study and picked up the phone. Mr. Henderson, this is Robert Sterling. I need your advice regarding my rights as a grandfather. The following days were some of the longest of my life. Despite repeated attempts to contact Mike, I received no response. Matthew also wasn't answering the phone I had given him for his 8th birthday. Mr. Henderson had explained my legal options, but I hesitated to take such an adversarial route. Forcing a meeting with my grandson through the courts would only make the situation with Mike worse. Exactly a week after Sarah's visit, while I was having breakfast on the terrace, Richard informed me of an urgent phone call. Sir, it is young Matthew. He sounds very distressed. I rushed to the phone, my heart pounding. Matthew, my boy? Is everything all right? His small voice was trembling. Grandpa, Dad and Mom are fighting all the time. Mom says we have to move. Dad is screaming. I am scared. Where are you right now? Matthew, in my room. I took Dad's phone to call you. He is going to be mad if he finds out. Do not worry about that. Can you put your dad on? He left an hour ago. He seemed very angry. Mom was crying. My worry deepened. And is your mom there? Yes. She is in her room. She is packing her bags. That information made my blood run cold. Matthew, listen to me very carefully. I am going to send someone to pick you up. Okay, James. Do you remember him? The nice man with the pretty car? Yes. I remember. He is going to come get you in about an hour. You can open the door for him when he arrives. Okay. Grandpa, are you coming too? No. My boy, I will wait for you here. But James will bring you to me safely. As soon as I hung up, I summoned James and explained the situation. He left immediately for the city. Then I called Mr. Henderson to inform him of my actions. Robert, you do realize that what you are doing could be interpreted as kidnapping. He warned me. It is not a kidnapping. My grandson is in danger. His mother is preparing to leave with him, and my son is absent. I am stepping in to ensure his safety. I understand your concerns, but legally speaking, I do not care about the legal aspect. Peter, this is my family. We will sort out the legal details later. After hanging up, I paced the living room 100 times, unable to focus on anything. The image of Matthew, terrified in his room, while his parents tore each other apart, haunted me. 3 hours later, Richard announced the arrival of the Cadillac. I rushed outside to welcome my grandson. Matthew got out of the car, clutching his little backpack tightly, his eyes red from crying. As soon as he saw me, he ran into my arms. Grandpa, I held him tight, feeling his small body tremble. Everything is all right. Matthew, you are safe now. James approached with a grave look. Sir, I need to speak with you in private. I handed Matthew over to Richard, asking him to show him his room and get him some hot chocolate. Then I pulled James aside. What exactly happened? When I arrived, the boy was waiting for me at the door, as agreed. Mrs. Sarah was indeed packing her bags. She seemed disoriented. When she saw me, she protested at first, but the boy insisted he wanted to come with me, that you were expecting him. She eventually gave in, saying she would call Mr. Mike. And Mike, no sign of him. According to the missus, he did not come home all night. I frowned, troubled. That wasn't like Mike. Even in difficult times. Thank you. James, take the rest of the day off? You did a good job. I joined Matthew in his room. He was already exploring the space, marveling at the view of the vineyards. Grandpa, is this your house? It is huge. I smiled, sitting on the edge of the bed. Yes. Matthew, it is our family's home. The Sterling family home. Why did we never come here before? It is a long story. My boy, a story I will tell you little by little. But first, I would like you to tell me what is going on at home. Why are your mom and dad fighting? He looked down, nervously playing with the blanket. It is your fault. I think Dad says you lied to him. Mom says he has to choose between her and you. She wants us to go live in Chicago with Aunt Michelle. I see, I said softly, taking in this information. And you, Matthew, what do you want? I want everyone to stop yelling, he answered simply, with that wisdom unique to children. I want us all to be together like before. I ran a hand through his hair. Sometimes adults make life complicated. Matthew, but I promise you one thing. I will always be here for you, no matter what. Can we stay here? It is pretty. Yes. We can stay here as long as you want, but we will also have to talk to your dad when he gets here. Is he going to come? I am sure of it. I let him settle in, exploring his new room with a childish curiosity that warmed my heart. Then I went back to my study to make the necessary phone calls. First to Mr. Henderson to brief him on the situation. Then I tried calling Mike again, with no success. Finally, early in the afternoon, as I was reading a story to Matthew before his nap, Richard knocked softly on the door. Sir, I am sorry to disturb you, but Mr. Mike has just arrived. He looks to be in a worrisome state. I quickly finished the story. I kissed Matthew on the forehead and promised to check on him before he fell asleep. I went downstairs to find Mike in the living room, a glass of bourbon in his hand. Looking agitated, his clothes were wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept in days. Where is Matthew? He demanded without preamble. Good afternoon to you, too. Mike. Matthew is in his room. I just read him a story. He is fine. What gave you the right to bring him here without my consent? He called me, terrified, while his mother was packing her bags and his father had vanished. I acted accordingly. Mike collapsed into an armchair, rubbing a hand over his exhausted face. Everything is falling apart. Dad, everything. I sat across from him, waiting for him to continue. Sarah wants to leave. She says she cannot stay with a man who has lived a lie. She wants to take Matthew to Chicago with her sister. And what do you want? He looked up at me, with eyes full of anguish. I don't know anything anymore. My whole life has just been turned upside down. Not your whole life. Mike, just your perspective on it. Do not play with words. He flared up. You hid the truth from me for 40 years? You let me believe we were a modest family, that I had to fight for every dollar. All this time. You had this. I interrupted him firmly. You had exactly what you needed. A roof over your head. An education. Love. What difference would the money have made? Everything. It would have changed everything. I wouldn't have had that constant pressure. That stress. The stress you put on yourself. Mike, your obsession with social status? With appearances. Sarah and you chose to live beyond your means. Buying in the Upper East Side when you could have settled comfortably somewhere else. Maintaining a lifestyle you could not afford. Because you didn't know there was an alternative. The alternative was always there. Living within your means. Being honest with yourself and with others. He stood up abruptly, pacing the floor. And what am I supposed to do now? Sarah is leaving me. My career has stalled. And my father suddenly reveals he is a millionaire, but that I have to earn my inheritance. I never told you it would be easy. Mike, I offered you a path. It is up to you to decide if you want to take it. He stopped, glaring at me with a mix of rage and despair. And if I refuse, if I don't want to become a winemaker at 42 years old, then you will continue your life as before. Nothing will change, except you will know the truth. The truth, he repeated bitterly. What truth exactly? That my father made a fool out of me my whole life, that my wife loved me for something I wasn't even. Perhaps the truth you are looking for is not in me, nor in Sarah, but within yourself. Mike. That phrase seemed to throw him off balance. He stopped dead in his tracks, as if struck by a sudden revelation. Can I see Matthew? He asked after a long moment of silence. Of course. He is your son. He will be happy to see you. I led him to Matthew's room. The boy wasn't asleep yet, flipping through a picture book about constellations that Richard had found in the library. Dad, he exclaimed upon seeing Mike, jumping out of bed to throw himself into his arms. I left them alone. Father and son reunited in this precious moment. I went downstairs to the living room. The night was going to be long, and tomorrow would bring its share of challenges. But for the first time in a long while, I saw a glimmer of hope. The next morning, I woke up early as usual. The house was quiet, all its occupants still fast asleep. I decided to use this peaceful moment to walk through the vineyards, a habit I had picked back up since returning to the estate. The air was crisp, the sun just beginning to peek over the horizon, illuminating the rows of vines with a golden light. It was a sight that never ceased to amaze me. Even after all these years, returning toward the mansion, I spotted a silhouette on the terrace. Mike, holding a cup of coffee, was also taking in the landscape. Good morning, I said, approaching. You are up early. I didn't really sleep, he admitted. Too many things on my mind. I sat next to him, accepting the cup of coffee Richard had just brought out. How is Matthew? I asked. He is sleeping. He seems happy here, more relaxed than I have seen him in a long time. I nodded without commenting. Matthew was a sensitive child who absorbed the tension around him like a sponge. I spoke to Sarah last night. Mike continued, after putting Matthew to bed. And what did you say? That maybe it was better this way for the time being. That he was safe with you, far from our arguments. I was surprised by this mature response. That was wise of you. Do not congratulate me too quickly, he said with a joyless laugh. She threatened to file for divorce if I do not bring him back immediately. And what are you going to do? He sighed deeply. I don't know. Dad, I really don't know. Everything is falling apart around me. My marriage, my career, my certainties. Even my relationship with you is not what I thought it was. I placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture I had not made in a very long time. Sometimes everything has to fall apart so you can rebuild on a stronger foundation. He looked at me in surprise. Then the shadow of a smile appeared on his face. Is that a quote from a self-help book? No. I chuckled softly. It is just the experience of an old man who has seen his share of collapses and rebuilds. We sat in silence for a moment, savoring this rare instance of connection. Dad, he finally said, can I ask you a question? Why now? Why keep the secret for so long, only to reveal it all like this? I thought for a moment before answering. I suppose I hadn't planned on doing it this way. It was your reaction the other day at the apartment that triggered everything. When you said I had nowhere to go, he muttered, looking down in shame. Yes. At that moment I realized two things. First, that you had become someone I no longer recognized. And, second, that perhaps I bore some responsibility for that transformation. By hiding too much from you. Maybe by wanting to shield you from the harmful effects of wealth. I created the very conditions for your obsession with money and status. He pondered those words, then shook his head. I cannot put all the blame on you. I made my own choices. I married Sarah knowing she was drawn to my potential, as she called it. I accepted that job at the bank knowing I hated the stress, but thinking the prestige was worth the sacrifice. It was my turn to be surprised. I had never heard Mike speak with such honesty about his own motivations. He took a deep breath. I would like to stay here for a few days with Matthew. To think, to see what you are proposing is really possible. If I can learn this trade, if I can become a Sterling, my heart swelled with a hope I didn't yet dare express. You will always be a Sterling, Mike, no matter what you decide. But yes, you are welcome here for as long as you wish. The sound of quick little footsteps interrupted us. Matthew appeared on the terrace, still in his pajamas, his hair messy. Dad. Grandpa. Look, I found a book about the stars in my room. He proudly showed us the astronomy book Richard had given him. It is magnificent. My boy, I said, pulling him onto my lap. You like the stars? Do you not? Yes. I want to be an astronomer when I grow up, or an astronaut. Mike tousled his son's hair tenderly. You can be whatever you want. Matthew, are we staying here today? The boy asked with hope. Yes, Mike answered after giving me a look. We are staying. Great, I can explore the estate and the vineyards, and see how the wine is made. I laughed at his enthusiasm. Anything you want. Matthew, I will take you to see every corner of the estate. And Dad, too. Mike confirmed. Dad, too. And I was moved to see a spark of curiosity in his eyes, remembering the boy he used to be. Thus began a day I would never have believed possible a few weeks ago. We toured the estate together. The 3 generations of Sterlings reunited. I showed Matthew and Mike the different plots, explaining the subtleties of the terroir, the secrets of cultivating the grapes, the history of our family intertwined with this land. In the afternoon, We visited the production facilities, where Matthew marveled at the enormous oak barrels and the traditional process that had remained unchanged for generations. "It is like a treasure," he exclaimed. "It is exactly that," I agreed. "A treasure that our family has kept and grown for generations." I caught Mike watching closely as the master winemaker explained the fermentation process, his eyes reflecting a fascination he had not shown since childhood. When night fell, while Matthew was in bed, Mike and I met in the study, sharing a glass of our best aged reserve wine. "It is impressive," he admitted. "Everything you have built here. It is not just me, Mike. It is the work of generations of Sterlings. And now it is up to you to decide if you want to continue this work." He swirled the glass between his fingers. Thoughtful, "Sarah will never understand all this. To her, fine wine is just an expensive drink ordered at a restaurant to impress clients. And to you, I do not know yet. But today, I felt something when the master winemaker let us taste the reserve straight from the barrel. It was— I do not know how to explain it. A connection," I suggested. "A bond with the land, with history, with something bigger than ourselves." He nodded slowly. Perhaps I had never felt that in my work at the firm. "It is no coincidence. Mike, Three Moons Estate is part of you, of your blood, of your heritage. You can reject it, but you cannot deny it." He remained silent for a long moment, then stood up and walked over to the window. Night had fallen, but the vineyards were softly illuminated by the moon. "I am going to stay," he finally said, "for a month, to see if I can learn, if it is really what I want, and Matthew will stay with me. He already loves this place, and it will be good for him to be away from the tension between Sarah and me. And Sarah," he sighed, "I will talk to her tomorrow. She probably will not understand, but I have to try to explain it to her." I stood up as well, approaching him. "You are making the right decision, Mike, not just for the estate, but for yourself and for Matthew." For the first time in years, I saw a new determination in his eyes, a serenity that filled me with pride. "Good night, Dad," he said, briefly hugging me before leaving the room. I stood alone in the study for a moment, contemplating the portrait of my father hanging on the wall. "You see, Dad," I murmured, "sometimes you just have to know how to wait." The following month was a transition period for all of us. Mike had taken a leave of absence from his firm, claiming burnout, which was not entirely false. He threw himself into learning viticulture and production with a passion I had never seen in him. Matthew was enrolled in the local town's school, where he quickly made friends. Free from the pressure of his old elite school in the city, he was flourishing, spending his afternoons exploring the vineyards, asking the estate employees 1,000 questions, and observing the stars from the terrace on clear nights. Sarah, as expected, had reacted badly, first incredulous, then furious. She had threatened Mike with various lawsuits, but gradually, faced with her husband's calm determination and Matthew's obvious happiness, she had ended up accepting the situation, at least temporarily. She came to see Matthew every other weekend, staying at a luxury hotel nearby, keeping a cold distance from Mike and me. One day, while Mike and I were inspecting a plot of vines where the first grapes were beginning to ripen, he surprised me with an unexpected question. "Do you think Mom would be proud of me now?" I stopped, touched by this sudden vulnerability. "Your mother was always proud of you, Mike. But yes, I think she would be particularly happy to see you here, reconnected with your heritage." She knew about the estate, of course, It was our joint decision to give you a normal upbringing, far away from all this. I have been thinking a lot these past few weeks, he said, gently touching a cluster of ripe grapes, about the life I led, the choices I made. I spent so much time chasing something that did not make me happy, just to prove my worth to others. And now I am beginning to understand what you were trying to teach me all those years. True value is not in what we own, but in what we create, in what we pass on. I placed a hand on his shoulder, moved by this growth. That is exactly it, Mike, and that is what Three Moons Estate represents. Not just a fortune, but a legacy, a responsibility, a bond with the land and with the future. He nodded thoughtfully. I do not know if my marriage will survive this transformation. Sarah and I built our relationship on other values, on appearances, social status, material possessions. You cannot change others. Mike, only yourself. Perhaps Sarah will evolve with you. Perhaps not. But you must follow your own path now. And if I am wrong, if all this is just a midlife crisis, a way of running away, I smiled. Life is made of trial and error. My son, but I do not think you are wrong. I see how you are flourishing here, how you take an interest in every aspect of the estate, how you spend hours discussing with the master winemaker or studying the production reports. This is not a whim, it is a revelation. We continued our walk in silence, each absorbed in his own thoughts. Later that day, while the three of us were having dinner on the terrace, Matthew surprised us with an announcement. Dad, Granta, I decided what I want to be when I grow up. Oh, really? Mike smiled. You do not want to be an astronaut anymore. Yes, I still want to explore the stars. But first, I want to work here with the vineyards. I want to learn how to make wine like Grandpa and you. Mike and I exchanged a touched look. That is an excellent idea. Matthew, I said, you have plenty of time to decide, but I am already decided, he insisted, with that determination unique to children. I will be a sterling winemaker and a star explorer. We laughed, touched by his declaration, but beyond the amusement, I felt a deep satisfaction. The bond was restored, the chain of generations renewed. Whatever Mike's future decisions regarding his personal life might be, he had found his place in our family history again, and Matthew was ready to carry that history forward. That same night, while Mike was putting Matthew to bed, I received a call from Mr. Pravitz. Henderson. Robert, I have important news. The foundation we created has just been officially recognized as a public charity. Everything is in order to modify your will. Thank you, Peter, but I think I am going to wait a little longer before finalizing these changes. Oh, he sounded surprised. Are you having second thoughts? Not second thoughts. Let us just call it a return of hope. After hanging up, I went to the library and pulled out an old photo album I had not opened in years. Pictures of Mike as a boy, of Grace and me as young parents, of our modest but happy vacations. Then more recent photos. Matthew as a baby, Mike and Sarah on their wedding day. Life sometimes took strange detours, unforeseen paths. But sometimes those detours led us exactly where we needed to be. My phone vibrated with a message from Mike. Matthew fell asleep. I will be in my office a while longer. I want to finish reading these reports on the West plot. Good night. Dad, I smiled reading this simple message that revealed so much. My son was becoming the man he was destined to be, taking on his responsibilities, investing himself in his heritage, not out of obligation, but by choice. Good night, my son. I murmured. Closing the photo album. Tomorrow will be a new day. 3 months passed like this, in a harmony I would never have believed possible. Mike extended his leave of absence, then eventually resigned from his firm. He now spent his days learning every aspect of the trade, from the fields to the winery, from production to marketing. Matthew had completely adapted to his new life, shining at school and becoming the favorite of the estate staff, whom he followed everywhere with his insatiable curiosity. As for Sarah, she had gradually spaced out her visits, finally accepting the new situation. One day, she asked to speak to Mike and me. We met in the small parlor, tense from the uncertainty of this conversation. I have been thinking, she began, unusually calm, and I have made a decision. I am going to move to Chicago with my sister, as I had planned. I received an interesting job offer there. Mike nodded without surprise. I understand. As for Matthew, she continued, I can see clearly that he is happy here, happier than he ever was in the city. I am not going to tear him away from all this to drag him somewhere he does not know anyone. This statement surprised us both. I had prepared myself for a fierce legal battle over Matthew's custody. You mean... I mean, he will stay with you, she confirmed. I will see him during school holidays. And of course, he can come to Chicago whenever he wants. But his life is here now. I saw the emotion in Mike's eyes, a mix of relief and gratitude. Thank you, Sarah. That is very generous of you. She offered a sad smile. Do not be mistaken. Mike, I am not doing this for you. I am doing it for Matthew, because I love him, and I want what is best for him. She turned to me. As for you, Robert, I must admit I was wrong about you. I spent years seeing you as an obstacle, an old-fashioned professor keeping us from living the way we wanted. I had not understood who you really were. We all have our secrets. Sarah, I replied softly, and our reasons for keeping them. She nodded, then stood up. I will leave next week. I would like to spend some time with Matthew before then, if possible. Of course, Mike said. He will be thrilled. After she left, Mike and I remained in silence for a moment, taking in this unexpected turn of events. I was not expecting that. He finally admitted, Sarah has her flaws, but she loves Matthew. She is doing what she believes is best for him. Yes, I am grateful to her for that. And you, Mike, are you happy with this outcome? He thought for a moment. Yes, sad about my marriage. Of course, but relieved for Matthew, and at peace with myself. I think, for the first time in a very long time. The next day, I summoned Mr. Henderson to the estate. It was time to finalize my will, but not in the way I had initially planned. Are you sure about this change, Robert? He asked, after hearing my new instructions. Completely sure. Peter, Mike has proven he is worthy of this inheritance, not by bowing to my demands, but by finding his own path, his own place in this history, and the foundation will always exist, but with a different role. A partner to the estate rather than a competing heir. Mr. Henderson noted my instructions, then looked at me with a smile. I am happy with this outcome, Robert. Truly happy for you and your family. Thank you. Peter, I am too. That night, as the three of us were having dinner, I raised my glass for a toast. To the Sterling family, I said simply. To the past, to the present, and to the future. Mike and Matthew raised their glasses. Vintage reserve for us. Grape juice for Matthew. And they repeated in unison. To the Sterling family. In their eyes, I saw the same light, the same attachment to this land that had brought us together against all odds. And I knew then that my legacy was in good hands. A few days later, while Mike and I were walking through the vineyards at dusk, he stopped suddenly and turned to me. "Dad, I wanted to say thank you for everything I repeated," surprised by this sudden declaration, "for having the courage to confront me, for showing me another path, for allowing me to discover who I truly am." I felt my heart swell with emotion. I am the one who should thank you, Mike, for having the courage to change, to question your certainties, to make a fresh start. "You know," he said, contemplating the vineyards gilded by the setting sun, "when you left that day in that limousine, I was furious, humiliated, but in retrospect, I realize it was the greatest gift you could have given me." "How so?" "You showed me that I did not really know you, that I did not even know myself. You forced me to question everything I took for granted. And thanks to that, I found my true place in the world." I placed a hand on his shoulder, unable to find the words to express what I felt. "Do you know what Matthew told me yesterday?" he continued. "That when he grows up, he wants to be like his grandfather. Not like you, like me," I laughed softly. "He says that now. But I am his daily role model. I am the one he watches, the one he imitates. Perhaps, but thanks to you, he discovered this place, this legacy. You are the one who saved us all in a way. We saved each other. Mike, that is what a family is." We continued our walk in silence as the first stars appeared in the sky. In the distance, the estate shone with all its lights, warm and welcoming. Our home, our legacy, our future. "You have nowhere to go." My son had said that fateful day. He did not know just how wrong he was, because I had always had a place to go, a place where we could all go together, rediscover our roots, and build our future. 3 Moons Estate, our true home. The following months passed in a peace I had not known since Grace's death. Mike had fully immersed himself in learning the trade, spending long days with the master winemaker, studying every aspect of production, from the selection of the grapes to the aging process in oak barrels. One morning, while we were having breakfast on the terrace, Mike surprised me with a proposal. "Dad, I have been thinking. I have some ideas to modernize certain aspects of production without losing the tradition. Would you like to hear them?" "Of course," I replied, hiding my satisfaction. It was the first time Mike had taken the initiative to propose changes. He pulled out some sketches he had prepared. "Look, we could implement a digital tracking system for each barrel. Consumers could scan a QR code and see the entire production process for their specific bottle. Authenticity is becoming increasingly important in the premium market." I studied his proposals carefully. They were innovative but respectful of our traditional methods. "This is brilliant, Mike. Exactly the kind of evolution we need. Tradition and innovation in balance." His eyes lit up with a pride that reminded me of the boy he had been. "I also thought we could create a special limited edition line, using barrels made from different American woods. Hickory, oak." We spent the next hour discussing his ideas, refining them, building together on the legacy we would share. For the first time, it was not just a father teaching his son, but 2 men collaborating on a joint project. "You know what, Mike," I finally said, "I think it is time you take an official role at the estate. Vice President of Innovation and Development. What do you think?" He was speechless for a moment. "Are you serious completely? You have proven your commitment, your understanding of the business, and your vision for the future. The estate needs your energy, your fresh ideas." "Dad, I do not know what to say. Thank you. Do not thank me. You have earned it. That afternoon, while Mike was working in the fields with the harvest crew, learning how to pick the grapes, I received an unexpected visit. Richard announced that a woman was asking for me at the entrance. Sarah, I asked. Surprised. We were not expecting her until next weekend. No, sir. She says her name is Ellen Rogers. She claims to be a journalist from the New York Times. I frowned. A journalist. What would she want? Show her into the small parlor. Richard, I will be right there. Ellen Rogers was a woman in her 40s, professional and direct. After the introductions, she cut right to the chase. Mr. Robert, I am writing an article about traditional wine estates that are innovating without losing their essence. Three Moons Estate caught my attention. Your production is exceptional, but you keep a very low profile. Why is that? The quality speaks for itself. I replied simply. We have never needed flashy advertising, I understand. But I was told that your son recently returned to join the family business. That is an interesting story. From financial consultant to winemaker, I put my guard up. How did she know that my son is learning the business? Yes, he is a Sterling. This land is in his blood. A beautiful story of returning to one's roots. She smiled. May I speak with him? I would have to ask him. He is in the fields right now. I called Mike and explained the situation. To my surprise, he agreed enthusiastically. It would be good for the estate, he said. And honestly, Dad, I am proud of what we are building here. Why hide it? He was right. The era of secrecy was over. It was time to share our story. The interview turned out to be fascinating. Mike spoke passionately about his transformation, his rediscovery of his roots, the importance of preserving traditions while embracing innovation. Do you not miss your old life? Ellen asked. The prestige of the financial world. The city? No. Mike answered without hesitation. Here I found something I never had there. Purpose. Connection. Peace. My son is growing up surrounded by family history, by land, by tradition. No amount of money can buy that. When Ellen left, promising to send us the article before publishing it, Mike and I stayed on the terrace. You did very well. I told him. I spoke from the heart. It is the truth. Your mother would be very proud. I know. Sometimes I feel like she is here with us. You know, especially at sunset. When the mountains turn golden, she loved this place just as much as you are learning to love it. That night, after putting Matthew to bed, I called Mike into my study. There is something I want to show you, I said. Opening the safe behind my father's portrait, I pulled out several old documents. The original deeds to the estate from 1892. Yellowed photographs of our ancestors. Handwritten letters from my great-grandfather. This is our history. Mike, the history of 5 generations of Sterlings, who built this legacy with blood, sweat, and tears. Mike reverently touched the old documents. It is incredible to think about everything these lands have seen. The Great Depression, Prohibition, all the transformations of the country, and now you are part of that history. You and Matthew. He pulled out one photograph in particular. My great-grandfather standing in front of the newly built estate, with the exact same expression of pride and determination I had seen on Mike's face lately. I look like him, he murmured. You are a Sterling. I smiled. You carry it in your blood. We put the documents away in silence, each absorbed in his own thoughts. Then Mike turned to me. Dad, there is something I have been wanting to tell you for a long time. Tell me. I am sorry for everything I said that day at the apartment. The threats. The cruelty. I was not myself. Or maybe that is exactly who I had become. And that is even worse. Mike. No. Let me finish. I spent years lost, chasing the wrong things for the wrong reasons. I needed you to confront me, to show me who I really was, so I could find my way. I stood up and hugged him, something I had not done since he was a child. We all make mistakes. Sonitre, the important thing is to learn from them. Thank you for not giving up on me, for believing I could change. I always believed in you. Mike, even when you did not believe in yourself. Weeks turned into months. Ellen's article was published and caused a sensation. Suddenly, Three Moons Estate was on the map, not just as a producer of exceptional wine, but as a symbol of family tradition, of returning to one's roots, of renewal. Orders skyrocketed. Mike handled the new business relationships with the same skill he had shown in finance. But now, with genuine passion, one day, we received an invitation to present our vintage at a charity gala in the city. It was a prestigious event. Exactly the kind of occasion Sarah would have adored. Should we invite her? Mike asked. I know things ended badly between us, but she is Matthew's mother. That is a generous decision. Mike, are you sure? Yes. We have all grown. Yes. Perhaps it is time to show her there are no hard feelings. Sarah accepted the invitation. The reunion was cordial, almost friendly. She looked radiant, successful in her new life in Chicago, and genuinely impressed by Mike's transformation. You look good, she told him. Happier than I have seen you in years. I am. Mike replied simply, I found my place. I am glad for you. And for Matthew, he comes to visit me every month, and he never stops talking about the vineyards, the wine, the stars he sees from the estate. He is a good boy. You guys did a good job with him, Sarah said. And for the first time, she included the entire Sterling family in that statement. The gala was a resounding success. Our special edition reserve sold out. And Mike established valuable contacts with international distributors. Driving back to the estate that night, with Matthew asleep in the back seat, Mike turned to me. You know what, Dad, a year ago, this was exactly the kind of event I would have desperately chased. The prestige, the connections, the social validation. And now, I just want to go home, to the estate, to what is real. I smiled in the darkness of the car. Then you really have found your path. Thanks to you, for having the courage to show me the truth. Even when it hurt, the credit is yours. Mike, I only opened a door. You were the one who chose to walk through it. We arrived at the estate just as dawn was beginning to paint the sky. The vineyards stretched out before us, silvery under the light of the waning moon. Home, Mike whispered. I never thought one word could mean so much. We carried a sleeping Matthew and took him to his room. As we were tucking him in, he opened his eyes briefly. Grandpa. Dad. Are we home yet? Yes, my boy. Mike replied. We are home. Good, he mumbled before falling back asleep. I like our home. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Life at Three Moons Estate had found a perfect rhythm. Mike managed the daily operations with growing competence, implementing his innovations while respecting the traditions that made our wine unique. Matthew thrived, dividing his time between school, his explorations in the fields, and nights observing the stars with the telescope I had given him for his birthday. One afternoon, while we were reviewing the quarterly reports in the study, Mike looked up with a serious expression. Dad, I need to talk to you about something important. Tell me, I have been thinking about the future. My future, Matthew's, the estates, and I want to propose something to you. I know you changed your will, that the foundation will receive a significant portion, and that seems fair to me. But I would like to actively contribute to that foundation, work with youth from rural communities, teach them the trade, give them the opportunities I despised for so long. I leaned back in my chair, deeply moved. Mike, that is a wonderful idea. It is not just altruism, he continued. It is also practical. We need to train the next generation of master winemakers. Tradition dies if it is not passed on. You are absolutely right. What exactly are you proposing? An apprenticeship program, full scholarships for promising youth from all over the state. They would live here, learn the trade, and study business and marketing as well. In 5 years, we would have a group of trained professionals who could work here or start their own operations. It is ambitious, I know, but I think it is necessary, and I believe we can do it. I smiled, proud of the man my son had become. Then let's do it. We will work with Mr. Henderson to structure the program through the foundation. Mike stood up and shook my hand, then hugged me. Thank you for believing in me. Dad, thank you for giving me reasons to believe. That night, I called for a special dinner at the estate. I invited Mr. Mayor, Henderson, Richard, James, the master winemaker, and the key members of the team. It was time to make a formal announcement. When everyone was gathered in the grand dining room, I stood up with a glass of wine in my hand. Friends, family, I have gathered you tonight to share some important news. As you know, my son Mike returned home several months ago. What started as a temporary stay has become a permanent commitment. Glances were exchanged around the table, smiles of approval. Mike has demonstrated not only his ability to learn our trade, but also his vision for the future. For this reason, I have decided to officially name him Vice President of Three Moons Estate, with full responsibilities over innovation and development. Applause broke out. Mike blushed slightly, but accepted the recognition with grace. Furthermore, I continued, we have decided to establish a training program through the Sterling Foundation. Full scholarships for young people who wish to learn the art of traditional winemaking. More applause. Even more enthusiastic. Finally, and here my voice cracked slightly with emotion, I want to thank all of you for your loyalty, your dedication, your patience with this old man who disappeared for 10 years and then returned expecting to take back the reins. Richard stood up. Mr. Robert, if I may, I speak for everyone when I say that this has always been your home. And now, seeing 3 generations of Sterlings gathered here, working together, is an honor for all of us. I raise my glass to Three Moons Estate, to the 5 generations that came before and to those that will come after, to Three Moons Estate. Everyone replied in unison. Matthew, sitting between Mike and me, proudly raised his glass of grape juice. And to the stars, he added, sparking affectionate laughter. And to the stars, I repeated, ruffling his hair. After dinner, as the guests were leaving and Matthew was going to sleep, Mike and I stayed on the terrace, watching the lights of the estate reflecting off the vineyards. It is perfect, Mike said softly. All this, I cannot believe I was about to reject it out of pride. Pride is a harsh teacher, I replied, but also an effective one. Do you know what the most ironic part is? For years I chased success, recognition, wealth, and now that I finally have them, I realize that was not what I was looking for. And what were you looking for? Belonging, purpose. connection, the things that cannot be bought, only built. And have you found them? Yes, I found them. Here, with you, with Matthew, with this land. We stood in silence, enjoying the peace of the night. In the distance, we heard the howl of a coyote, a sound so deeply tied to these lands. Dad, Mike finally said, there is something else I want to tell you. That day, when you yelled, "You have nowhere to go," I thought it was the end of my pride, of my dignity, of my independence. I know, but it was actually the beginning of finding my true home, my true self. So thank you for being strong enough to let me go and wise enough to show me the way back. Tears burned my eyes. Mike, do not say anything. Dad, just thank you. I hugged him. This son I had gotten back, who had found his way through the darkness and into the light. I love you. Preisentenis. I love you too. Dad. And in that moment, under the stars, with the vineyards whispering in the night breeze, I knew I had fulfilled my duty, not just as a father, but as the guardian of a legacy that would now pass into capable hands and committed hearts. The story of the Sterlings would continue, and it would be a story even more beautiful than I had ever imagined. 1 year after that fateful day in the Upper East Side apartment, I found myself once again on the terrace of Three Moons Estate, watching the sunrise over the vineyards. But this time, I was not alone. Mike was by my side, reviewing the production reports for the last quarter. Matthew was playing nearby, building a model space rocket he planned to launch that afternoon. The numbers are excellent, Mike said, closing the folder. The limited edition line sold out in 3 weeks, and we have international orders from Japan, France, and the UK. Your vision is bearing fruit, I replied. Our vision? Dad, this is a joint effort. Richard appeared with fresh coffee and the daily newspaper. Mr. to Robert. Mr. Mike, I thought you would want to see this. It was the front page of the business section. Three Moons Estate, when tradition meets innovation. The story of a father, a son, and the wine that brought them together. The article was extensive, detailed, beautiful. It told our story with respect and admiration, from the founding of the estate to my disappearance in the city, the dramatic return, and Mike's transformation. Listen to this, Mike said, reading aloud. Robert Sterling did not just build a wine empire. He built a family legacy that survived distance, pride, and misunderstanding, emerging stronger than ever. It is a bit melodramatic, I commented, though I could not help but smile. It is the truth. Mike replied simply. Matthew looked up from his rocket. Grandpa, can we visit the new plot today? I want to see the vines we planted last month. Of course, my boy. After breakfast, as we were eating, I reflected on the path we had taken. A year ago, I was sitting in my bedroom in the apartment, listening to my son tell me I had nowhere to go. Humiliated, rejected, considered a burden, and now I was here, surrounded by love, purpose, and hope. What are you thinking about? Dad, Mike asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. How strange destiny is. How sometimes the darkest moment can become the catalyst for the most beautiful change. Are you referring to that day? Yes. When you told me I had nowhere to go, Mike looked down, still ashamed of the memory. Dad, we already talked about that. I asked for your forgiveness. No, Mike, Do not misunderstand me. That day was painful. Yes, but it was also necessary. It showed me who you had become and gave me the courage to act. Without that moment, perhaps we would have never gotten here. So you hold no grudge against me, none. On the contrary, I am grateful to you. Grateful for treating you so badly. Grateful because you gave me the opportunity to teach you the most important lesson, that a true home is not a physical place, but the people we love and the values we share. Matthew, who had been listening in silence, chimed in with the innocent wisdom of children. Like in the book you read to me? Grandpa, the little prince and his rose. It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important. Mike and I looked at each other, amazed and moved. Exactly. Matthew, I said, exactly. That afternoon, as we were walking through the fields, with Matthew running ahead to inspect every plant, Mike confessed something to me. You know, Dad, sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if you had never confronted me. If you had accepted my conditions and stayed quiet in your room, I would probably still be in that job I hated, in an empty marriage, raising Matthew to value the same superficial things I was chasing. I would have been successful on paper, but empty inside. But you did not take that path. No, thanks to you. You forced me to look in the mirror, to see who I really was, and I did not like what I saw. But that gave me the opportunity to change. Change was always your choice. Mike, I only opened the door, a door I did not know existed. We arrived at the new plot where the young vines grew in perfect rows. Matthew was already there, carefully examining each plant. Dad, Grandpa, this one grew almost 2 inches since last time. His enthusiasm was contagious. This child, who could have grown up in the superficiality of the city, was instead learning to appreciate slow growth, patient work, the long-term reward. Do you know how long it will take for this plant to be ready for harvest? I asked him. 7 years? He answered proudly. Master James explained it to me. You have to wait 7 years for the vine to mature perfectly. That is right. And that is an important lesson for life, too. Things that are worth it require time. Patience. Dedication. Like when Dad learned how to make wine, Matthew said. At first he did not know anything, but now he is the best. Mike laughed, tousling his son's hair. I am not the best, buddy, but I am learning, and I will keep learning my whole life. That, I said, is the attitude of a true master. When we returned to the estate at sunset, we found a surprise waiting. Sarah was there. But she was not alone. She was accompanied by a man, introduced as Rick, her new boyfriend. The encounter could have been awkward, but it was surprisingly warm. Sarah looked genuinely happy, relaxed in a way I had never seen her when she was with Mike. I hope you do not mind that I brought Rick, she said. He wanted to see the place where Matthew spends so much time. Not at all, Mike replied with sincerity. Anyone important in Matthew's life is welcome here. We all had dinner together on the terrace. A modern, blended family, but a family nonetheless. Matthew was radiant, happy to have his parents and grandfather together, even in this new arrangement. It is beautiful here, Rick said, admiring the landscape. I understand why Matthew never stops talking about the estate. It is special, Sarah agreed. And for the first time, she sounded genuine. I am sorry I did not understand it sooner. Everyone has their own time, I replied gently, and their own path. After dinner, when Sarah and Rick retired to their hotel, Mike and I stayed on the terrace for our nightly ritual of wine under the stars. I never thought we could reach this point. Mike said. All of us together, in peace. Peace requires everyone to be where they belong. Sarah found her place in Chicago. You found yours here. And Matthew has everyone's love. And you? Dad, did you find what you were looking for? I looked at my son. This man I had rediscovered. This worthy heir to our legacy. And I smiled, more than I imagined. I wanted to teach you about tradition, responsibility, values. But you taught me about forgiveness, redemption, and second chances. Then we both learned, yes, we both learned. We raised our glasses in a silent toast, father and son, master and apprentice, guardian and heir. In the distance, we heard Matthew's laughter from his room, probably reading one of his astronomy books. The most beautiful sound in the world. Do you know what the most ironic part of all this is? Mike said suddenly. What? That day, when I yelled that you had nowhere to go. I was right in a way. You had nowhere to go because you were already exactly where you needed to be. I was just too blind to see it. And I was too proud to show you directly. So we both made mistakes. And we both learned from them. That is what matters. We sat in silence, enjoying the perfect night, the starry sky, the gentle breeze whispering through the vines. Dad, Mike finally said, thank you for not giving up on me, for believing I was worth saving. You were always worth it. Mike, always. He hugged me. And in that embrace, I felt the weight of everything we had lived, to lost, found, and built together. When we finally pulled apart, I saw tears in his eyes, reflecting my own, I love you, Dad, and I love you, my son. That night, before going to sleep, I took out the photograph of Grace one last time, my love, my partner, my accomplice in this great adventure of life. We did it, my love, I whispered to her image. Not the way we planned, not without pain or mistakes, but we did it. Mike found his way. Matthew is growing up surrounded by love and tradition, and 3 Moons Estate will live on for another generation. The night wind made the curtains flutter, as if she were answering, and in my heart, I knew she was proud. I closed my eyes with a peace I had not known in years. The story that had begun with a shout of rejection had ended with an embrace of reconciliation. You have nowhere to go, my son had told me. But he was wrong. I always had a place to go, a place that waited patiently, a legacy that endured, a family that renewed itself with each generation. 3 Moons Estate, our home, our past, present, and future. And as I fell asleep, I dreamed of the vineyards, stretching infinitely under the American sky, with generations of Sterlings working the land, with Matthew one day standing on this very terrace, telling his own children the story of the grandfather who left and returned, of the father who got lost and found himself, of the family that broke and repaired itself. Because in the end, that is what we are. Not perfect, but present, not without mistakes, but with the will to make amends. Not always united, but always family. The Sterlings of 3 Moons Estate, and our story continues. 5 years later, 3 Moons Estate celebrated its 133rd anniversary with a grand party. The first 3 students of the scholarship program graduated, ready to bring the tradition of artisanal winemaking to their own communities. Mike, now president of the estate after my formal retirement, gave a moving speech about tradition, innovation, and family. Matthew, at 13 years old, proudly announced that he had been accepted into a special astronomy program, but that he would return every summer to work in the vineyards. And I Robert Sterling, at 80 years old, watched from my chair on the terrace, surrounded by my family, my employees who had become friends, and the legacy that would continue long after I was gone, because now I knew the truth. That night of the celebration, when all the guests had left and the estate slept under a blanket of stars, I stayed alone on the terrace. Mike approached with 2 glasses of our oldest reserve wine, the one set aside for the most special occasions. "You could not sleep either," he said, sitting next to me. "Too many emotions for one day. 133 years. Dad, 5 generations, and we will continue." "Yes, you will continue." We drank in silence, savoring the golden liquid that held years of patience, hard work, and love. "Do you know what Matthew told me today?" Mike asked with a smile. "What? That when he grows up and has kids, he will tell them the story of great-grandfather Robert, who saved the family." "I did not save anyone?" "Mike, yes, you did. You saved me from myself. You saved Matthew from growing up without roots. You saved the Sterling legacy. I only did what I had to do. No, you did what few have the courage to do. You risked everything for the truth." The stars shone with a particular intensity that night, as if Grace herself were watching, approving, celebrating. "When I am no longer here," I began. "Dad, no. Listen to me. When I am no longer here, I want you to remember this. The most important legacy I leave behind is not the estate. It is not the money. It is not even the Sterling name. Then what is it? It is the example that it is never too late to change. That true love sometimes requires toughness. That family is not perfect, but it is always worth fighting for." Mike nodded, overcome with emotion. "I will remember it, and I will teach it to Matthew, and he to his children, and so on. Then I will have fulfilled my purpose." We remained there until dawn, father and son, guardian and heir, past and future, united by the love for this land and for this family that had survived everything. And when the sun began to rise over the vineyards, painting everything in gold and promise, I knew with absolute certainty that the history of the Sterlings was in the best possible hands.